A PhD in biomechanics and one handicap, Dr. Sasho Mackenzie has become one of the foremost voices in the science of golf. Working with golfers and golf teachers alike, most notably Chris Como, swing consultant to Tiger Woods, Dr. Mackenzie has some very interesting views on how the golf swing really works. What fascinates you most about the golf swing?
What fascinates me most about the golf swing? I guess I would say from my blend of playing myself and scientific research, it would be how a golf swing can feel very different. So a player can maybe think they're changing some things, and they would think, wow, my swing plane must be very upright in this swing, and you would look at a video and there would be hardly any noticeable difference. So that would probably be, I guess, on my list of the most fascinating things, that how different feel can be from reality.
I've been dealing with that a lot recently with my own game, the difference between feel and real, especially when it comes to something I wanted to talk to you about, lag in the golf swing.
Okay.
Because to me, I feel like retaining this angle as much as possible is going to give me snap at the bottom. But from some of the things I've seen recently and some of the things you've seen, lag should maybe not be the focus for people when it comes to generating the most speed for a golf swing. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that probably stems from a lot of golf instructors going through the process of trying to teach lag, say maintaining the wristcock angle longer, and not necessarily seeing success with it.
Right.
So certainly from a research perspective, you take a large group of golfers with varying degrees of club head speed, there will be a pretty strong association. There was researcher Chu that demonstrated that pretty aptly, that there's a strong association with the longer you can maintain that lag, and the greater that lag is, the higher club head speed will be. But there's probably a lot of other biomechanical things that need to go along with that to make that happen. So it's not strictly a cause and effect. If you get more lag, then you will get more club head speed. So certainly I think that some golfers have maximized their lag, and by introducing more, it maybe will not increase club head speed because they cannot generate those other biomechanical factors that are necessary to make use of that extra lag.
I've seen you talk before about the things that generate speed, and you, in the players that you've seen that really, Jamie Sadalowski and others, that really generate a lot of speed, you see a very high hands in the backswing and extreme flexibility in the forearms and upper body and wrists.
Yes, definitely. Yep, without a question in my mind, flexibility, increased range of motion that you're going to move the club through will give you the most allowance for increasing club head speed. What
can a blacksmith teach us about how to be more consistent in golf? What have you found from that?
Well, I think you're probably referring to Bernstein's earlier work, which suggested or showed that blacksmiths were variable at the more proximal joints, so their shoulder and elbow, but then as the variability, we looked at the variability as it came closer to the end of the striking implement, it decreased. So it's more of a kind of a motor control approach than a biomechanical one, but showing that, hey, there's not necessarily an exact motion that needs to be replicated, but as long as the motions at those joints result in the same end position, we're going to be fine. And there's no particular reason why the person swinging the hammer or the person swinging the club needs to move every joint in the exact same way every time. It's just that those joints, their positions and movements need to result in the same end point of the golf club.
The different strikes could come from all these different spots, but the user is able to narrow it at the moment of truth.
The variability that might, say, happen at the shoulder joint would be coupled with a variability at the elbow joint that would have a net effect of canceling each other out, so that would put the wrist joint in the same position in space.
Constant adjustments.
Yeah, constant, exactly. If you were to just look at my shoulder variability and an expert performer's shoulder variability, they might look the same. And if you were to look at the elbow in isolation, they might look the same, let's say, if we're throwing darts. But what you would notice is that those variabilities for the expert performer are coupled. So they would tend to cancel each other out by the time it got to releasing the dart. Whereas my variabilities might add to actually make the error even bigger.
Oh, okay, I see.
So my shoulder angle, my elbow angle might actually be, say, in the same direction that would result in a big miss of the dart, or release point of the dart, whereas the expert performer, if their shoulder went down, their elbow would be in such position that it would mean a similar release position or similar release velocity for the dart.
So it's a matter of balance.
Matter of balance, yeah.
Saw a video with you and Chris Como, Tiger Woods' swing instructor, and you guys were talking about something called the 3D flat spot. What is that?
If you think of the club head as moving through a circular-like path, I think Chris might argue that you would be more consistent golfer if that circular path became flat through impact, so that the rate of angle of attack and the rate of horizontal path change would be the least at impact.
Instead of going straight to the low point, it is shallowing like this?
That's right. So the rotation of the club tends to move the club head down, that angular motion, on a downward direction, following a perfect circle if all we have is rotation. However, if we just think of angle of attack for a second, if the amount of vertical change in the club head due to that rotation is completely balanced by the linear movement of the butt end of the club, so as this club is rotating down, if it's balanced by movement of the shaft up, then that means that the club head isn't actually going to move along the circle, it will move in a straight line. So if you have the club that's at shaft parallel in the downswing, I'm going to want to be applying some force up on the handle. That's going to continue to apply a torque that's going to increase the rotational speed of the club. If that makes sense. So you always want there to be a big moment arm, so to speak, from the direction of the force line of action, the force being applied on the club, and where the center of gravity of the club is out here. Biggest moment arm for that force means that there's going to be the biggest torque. Bigger the torque, the more rotational energy you're going to add to the club. The faster the club is rotating within the swing, the more club head speed you're going to get. There's probably a correlation of about 0.95 between the angular velocity of the club at impact and club head speed.
Okay.
The faster you can get that rotating, the better.
How do you get that feel into your swing to do something that happens so fast?
You know, I've heard golf instructors doing simple drills where you stand behind and, you know, kind of you're kneeling down and kind of in front of the golfer, and you say, okay, put the shaft out of another club or an alignment stick, and you say, you can't let your hands go past this shaft. So you're coming down the ball, but then if you don't want your hands to don't let your hands travel down the line, you have to pull them in, tighten up in behind you. So
yeah, could you show us that? That sounds really interesting.
So if I'm tending to swing the club in this direction and have my hands too long moving out or towards a target, well, I could put as a golf instructor, I could put a shaft here. So the shaft could be coming out here, and I could say, okay, make sure your hands stay inside that shaft in the follow through.
Okay.
Right. So that's gonna, as you're coming down, the thought is, because your hands are moving in a circle, you don't want them to go out that way. They need to come in here. That's going to have you pulling in and up on the handle.
Because of the circular motion of the golf swing, anything, if you're going to stay on plane, anything that comes up should also have to come in. Because
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Can too much knowledge of the science of a golf swing destroy someone's game? You hear a lot of pundits saying he's too much in his own head. He's too much concentrating on the science of it, and he's not doing the art of it enough. Do you think that that's just kind of fear of knowledge, or what do you think about that?
I would, if that's the case, I would blame the coach, not science or too much knowledge. I think it would depend on the type of player. Some players really want to know everything, and even within that group, if they wanted to know everything and why they were doing certain things, it would still be the coach's decision to determine how much of that knowledge would be helpful. Um, my own personal ideas to try to enact a change. If you have a really good idea that something's wrong, it could be something that's actually mechanical in the swing, but that's hopefully resulting in some issue in ball flight. Obviously, you're not just going to change something mechanical just with the ball flight. The first thing that I would do is just ask them to do something as externally focused as possible, so they have the least mechanical thoughts, and I would continue working down that path until we got more internally focused. And we're talking maybe over weeks, months, maybe even a year into this before I would probably get to the point where we're talking about forces and torques and specific angles.
What would be an example of when you say an external force and an internal force when you're trying to get better? What would an example of one of those two things be?
Sorry, external focus of attention and
What would an example of that be? External focus of attention and internal focus.
Sure. So let's say somebody is struggling with their shots from 50 to 75 yards, proximity to the hole.
Yeah.
Okay? This tour player is just, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be able to really do very well with that. But when you take them out to the TrackMan combine in the lab or on the range in a nice day, I don't know, they seem to be doing really well. But in the playing situation where you have wind, you have to land the ball in certain spots in the green, maybe the issue is that they're flighting the ball too high. And all they can do is hit this really high, these really high wedge shots that don't work well in every situation from different lies and different conditions. They need to work. Let's just keep it simple. Say they need to really work on flighting the ball lower.
Yeah.
So, the first thing I would do would be to focus on, give them an external focus, which could simply be setting something up, tree branch that's 30 yards out, and say, okay, we gotta, I want you to land these on the green, but you have to keep it underneath that tree branch.
That's a great idea, because you're saying, because most people want to jump immediately to a swing change to when they have an issue to address with any part of their golf. If they're missing 3-foot putts, or if they're hooking their driver, immediately they want to go to a swing change. But you're saying maybe in your practice, just change your external focus, your focus out there. It might just be a visualization, and your own body's natural athleticism might be able to figure it out before you have to start tinkering with anything.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, and so then if we skip forward, the last thing that I would be trying to do would be have them think about their wrist angles at impact.
Okay, yeah. So
if they
the whole
automatically, that's the issue, right? Is probably that's the issue is how much shaft lean are they having at impact, or that's probably going to be the final reason why they're not flighting the ball so low. Yeah,
but you don't want to just jump to, okay, you want to just tell them the reason you're hitting it too low is because you're adding loft to the club and you need to get it lower. Instead, let's try some external things like, okay, let's go set up under this tree and just or hit this ball under the bench. Let's just naturally feel, if you can feel what that feels like to hit it lower before you get into the...
Yeah. Now, the reality is that's not going to work for everybody.
Right.
If that doesn't work, then I would.
Then you go to the next step.
Way down to, okay, it would still be feelings, what you're feeling with your body. Can you, not necessarily a specific angle, but Can you feel like you have more, your hands are moving faster through impact? So often I find that thought will lead to having the hands being a little bit more ahead of the ball at impact and de-lofting the club.
The most interesting thing to me to hear from a scientist was to hear this external focus first before we start getting into the nitty-gritty. It's almost science is kind of validating an old school approach to improvement.
You still need to understand what you're trying to accomplish with the external focus, so to speak, but you don't necessarily need to have them understand everything to get the desired result or the desired biomechanics.
How's your golf game, by the way? How have you been playing? Or I guess in Canada, it's just getting into golf season now.
Just getting into golf season now. So I finished off last season at a 1.6, but first I've got 2 rounds in. First round was pretty rough. It was an 80, and
that'll happen.
A couple triple bogeys. And, I still had a triple.
80 with two triple bogeys is pretty good.
Yeah, well, different focus. So that's gonna be, hit 2 OB, but probably should have played smarter shots, but working on some things. But yeah, I'll hopefully get it back around.
So when you're trying to get better, it sounds like you're focusing less on the mechanicals and more on the decision making and the mental game.
Oh, absolutely. I think especially when I'm on the course, there's no mechanical thoughts or very little. Unless my feels start to get confusing, and then in particular, I tend to focus a lot on the relationship between the center of gravity of the club and my hand path, which is difficult to necessarily can't feel that, but I can translate if I can kind of see where it hit the ball in the face, and I kind of know what the quality of impact was like. I can work backwards to understand what that relationship between the center of gravity of the club and the hand path must have been to get that result. And even though it might not feel like I've done that, at least I know which direction to move my feels in.
That'll be leading me to my last question is, how does such a smart person like you shut their brain off to a degree and just play the game?
That's a good question. Faith.
Yeah. You have to have a direction of what you're trying to do and stay in that path.
Certainly you cannot think about the margin of error necessary to play good golf. No, I think you have to translate all those mechanical thoughts into feels and just trust and execute. Easier said than done, but certainly knowing all that information is not going to be helpful when you're on the course.
Right. You talk about the margin, not think about the margin of error that it takes to play good golf, because if you do think about it, that will be really discouraging if you really think about what goes into playing good golf from a physics point of view.
That's right. You really have to convince yourself it's the opposite way around.
It's simple. It's easy.
You're right. In order for me to play, if I'm playing a fade, I need to feel like I have to try and swing the club so hard from out to in through impact that no matter how hard I do that, I'm only going to get a 10-yard fade anyway. You know, not that I can leave the face 4 degrees open and 3 degrees in doubt and hit the ball OB. Instead, you need to convince yourself the feeling is, I can. It's almost like reversing the relationship where really extreme feels result in very minor changes to path and face.
Especially the better you get. Yeah. You see pros all the time doing these exaggerated pre-shot routines, and then the real swing in slow-mo looks basically the same.
That's right. Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
Great. Well, thank you for joining me. And if you're ever in Southern California, you're going to have to look me up, and we'll go play.
All right. Great.
All right. Great. All right. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Okay. Bye, Brennan.
Bye.